Are you constantly reaching for your phone, scrolling through social media, binge watching shows, or snacking mindlessly? It might not be your willpower at fault, it's dopamine. We live in a world of constant stimulation, and it's rewiring our brains. Today, I'm going to explain how dopamine addiction works, why it's making it harder for you to focus and find satisfaction, and how you can do a dopamine detox to take back control of your life. We've all heard about dopamine, the so called feel good chemical in the brain that's associated with pleasure and reward. But what you may not realize is that we're all living in a world of dopamine overload. From the moment we wake up and check our phones to the moment we mindlessly scroll before bed, we're constantly seeking those little dopamine hits. Over time, this can lead to dopamine addiction, where we need more and more stimulation just to feel normal. I'm Dr. Suresh, and today we're diving into the science of dopamine addiction, how it's affecting everything from your focus to your motivation and mood, and I'll walk you through a simple dopamine detox program to reset your brain and regain control over your habits. So, what is dopamine and how does it work? Let's start with the basics. Dopamine is a neurotransmitter, or a chemical, if you will, in the brain that plays a key role in our reward system. It's released whenever we experience something pleasurable or exciting, like eating delicious food, getting a like on social media, or even completing a task. But here's where it gets tricky. Dopamine doesn't just make you feel good. It drives you to seek out more rewards. It's what motivates you to check your phone again and again. Watch just one more episode. This cycle of reward-seeking behavior is entirely natural. But in today's world of endless digital distractions and instant gratification, it's easy for our brains to become addicted to these constant dopamine hits. When you do something that triggers a dopamine release, whether it's eating sugary snacks or scrolling through social media, your brain associates that activity with pleasure. This strengthens the desire to repeat the behavior. Over time, the more dopamine you release, the more your brain craves it. This is why you might find yourself reaching for your phone or snacking, even when you don't really want to. In fact, research shows that this constant barrage of small dopamine hits can desensitize the brain, meaning you need more and more stimulation to get the same sense of satisfaction. This is how dopamine addiction develops, and it can leave you feeling more restless, distracted, and unable to enjoy the simpler things in life. So what's the problem with dopamine, and why do we need to worry about dopamine overload? After all, dopamine feels good, right? It's the feel-good hormone. Well, while dopamine is essential for motivation and reward, too much of it can wreak havoc on your mental health, focus, and motivation. Let's look at a few key areas this might happen. One of the most obvious effects of dopamine addiction is the loss of focus. When we're constantly chasing quick dopamine hits, whether it's from our phones, snacks, or social media, our brain's ability to focus on tasks that require sustained attention takes a hit. Think about how hard it is to concentrate on reading or working a project when you're tempted to check your phone every few minutes. This constant distraction-seeking behavior rewires the brain, making it harder to focus on important, longer-term tasks. You may find yourself procrastinating more, losing interest in hobbies that require deep concentration, and just feeling frustrated when you can't stay on task. Next up is loss of motivation. Dopamine addiction doesn't just affect focus, it also impacts motivation. Because you're constantly chasing short-term rewards, your brain becomes less interested in long-term goals or tasks that don't provide instant gratification. This is why many people struggle with productivity, finding it hard to stay motivated on tasks that don't offer immediate rewards. For example, you might start a new project or habit with enthusiasm, but as soon as the initial excitement fades, so does your motivation. This leaves you in a constant cycle of starting but not finishing, always chasing the next dopamine hit instead of staying consistent with your long-term goals. Dopamine overload can also mess with your mood and emotional well-being and emotional regulation. When you rely on dopamine-driven activities for pleasure, other sources of satisfaction, like just spending time in nature, reading, or engaging in meaningful conversations with people, they start to just feel less rewarding over time. Over time, this can lead to mood swings, restlessness, and even feelings of emptiness or anxiety when you're not engaged in something stimulating. Your brain becomes less able to handle boredom or moments of stillness, which are essential for creativity, emotional processing, and well being. So, now that we've spoken a little bit about the problems with dopamine, how do you break the cycle of dopamine addiction and reclaim your focus, motivation, and emotional well being? Well, the simple answer, it lies in a dopamine detox. A dopamine detox is essentially a period where you limit your exposure to instant gratification activities and give your brain a chance to reset. And here's how you do it. Number one is identifying your dopamine triggers. This is the first step in a dopamine detox. What is actually driving your dopamine addiction? Is it your phone? Is it social media? Is it snacks? Is it video games? You need to know what's hijacking your brain's reward system so you can consciously limit or eliminate those triggers during the detox. Take a day or two to track your habits and see what activities you turn to for quick dopamine hits. You might be surprised at how often you're reaching for stimulation without even realizing it. Next up is setting boundaries with technology. One of the biggest dopamine triggers is technology, especially phones and social media. During a dopamine detox, it's essential to set boundaries with your devices. This could mean turning off notifications, limiting screen time, or even scheduling phone-free periods throughout the day. A common approach is to do a 24-hour detox, where you completely disconnect from technology. No phones, no social media, no screens. Use this time to engage in low dopamine activities like reading, walking, meditating, or spending time with loved ones. Next up is to focus on low dopamine activities. During the detox, we want to focus on low dopamine activities that don't provide instant gratification, but instead promote some longer-term satisfaction. For example, this could be reading. Instead of scrolling through your phone, pick up a book. Reading engages your brain, but without the need for constant stimulation. Exercise and physical activity also boosts endorphins, which helps to balance your mood, reduce cravings, and the dopamine-driven activities. Meditation can be very useful here. Practicing meditation and mindfulness helps your brain's reward system to relax, allowing you to feel more present and less reactive to cravings and dopamine. Journaling is incredibly important. Write down your thoughts, and this can help you to process what's happening and stay motivated to continue. Find out what works and what doesn't. One of the hardest parts of a dopamine detox is embracing boredom. We've become so used to constant stimulation that boredom just feels boring and uncomfortable. But boredom is actually a really powerful tool. It allows your brain to reset and rest. It's in moments of stillness that we often find ourselves having the most creative breakthroughs and getting the best ideas. During the dopamine detox, allow yourself to be bored. Resist the urge to fill the silence with distractions and instead reflect or daydream and simply just enjoy the moment. Number 5 is to gradually reintroduce stimuli. This means being intentional about how you use technology, social media, TVs, and other reward-driven activities. Set limits for yourself, for example, such as checking your phone only at specific times, and focus on balancing high stimulation activities with low dopamine activities. All of this can result in the dopamine detox. So what can you expect after doing the detox? Well, the benefits can actually be quite profound, especially if you've been living in a state of constant stimulation for a long time. Here's what you might notice. Improved focus and productivity. One of the biggest benefits of the dopamine detox is an increase in focus. By breaking the cycle of constant distractions, your brain becomes better at staying on task, and you'll find it easier to concentrate on important work without feeling the need to multitask. Greater motivation. After resetting your brain, you'll find that your motivation improves. You'll be more inclined to stick with long-term goals and projects, even if they don't provide immediate rewards. This is because your brain has relearned how to find satisfaction in sustained effort rather than instant gratification. Enhanced emotional well-being and mood. Detoxing from dopamine can really help you to feel more emotionally stable. Without constant stimulation, you'll experience fewer mood swings, and your baseline level of happiness and commitment and contentment will increase. You'll find more joy in simple activities like spending time with friends, being in nature, or working on simple hobbies that bring long-term satisfaction. Excessive screen time and overstimulation can negatively impact sleep. During a dopamine detox and afterwards, your sleep is very likely to improve. as your brain isn't constantly bombarded with dopamine triggers late into the night. A more restful night's sleep will further enhance your focus, energy, and mood during the day. So this is how we take back control with a dopamine detox. In today's world, it's easy to get trapped in a cycle of dopamine addiction, always chasing the next hit of stimulation. But by doing a simple dopamine detox, you can reset your brain, reclaim your focus, and regain control over your habits. Whether it's technology, social media, or food, taking a break from these triggers allows you to reconnect with the things that truly matter and to find satisfaction in life's simple pleasures. If you are ready to reset your brain and break free from dopamine addiction, head over to themeatmedic.com for more tips and resources on living a more intentional, focused life.